remember the first time I read about imposter syndrome and I was like, oh my God, other people have this too.
So if today you and I were constructing an ideal VC from a human angle and a philosophy angle, what would make a good investor?
Whether or not being a builder means I can give better advice, I'm not sure. But I do think having that background means that founders listen to you more.
One thing that I've observed with every public appearance that you've done, you have great fashion sense. I don't know if people have told you this.
No, nobody's ever told me that.
Well, the wait is finally over. This is the video edition of the Desi VC podcast. My name is Akash Bhatt, and I'll be your host for the ride. And I will be taking you behind the scenes and uncovering all things that make successful Desis successful. If you enjoy getting to know the person behind the persona, then this is the podcast for you. Here is the new and improved The Desi VC podcast.
Sheel, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, happy to be here.
So last evening when I was sitting at my desk, I was scratching my head and trying to understand how do I kick off this podcast episode? And in the lead up, I had done plenty of research. I had listened to at least 7 or 8 podcasts that you'd been on, everything from 20VC to Money Moves. And one thing stood out to me when I was doing that research. You talk so passionately about family. It's very close to your heart, be that your parents, their struggles, your father's journey from a small village, to getting into a PhD program and everything that he's accomplished over the course of his time in the US. And even when you were on Money Moves with your wife, Amrita, the host asked you a question, what's your best investment so far? And you jokingly said, she's sitting with me here on this in this podcast. So to me, it didn't come off as fake or it didn't come off as jest. You truly meant that when you said it.
Yeah.
So the first question to you is, what does family mean to you and what role has that played in who you are and what it's made you accomplish in life?
Yeah. Well, I can say about let's go the investment. Why, of course, the person that you're spending the most of your time with, like choosing that person is the most important investment you can make, right? It's like you're going to spend more time with that person than any possible monetary gain you can get from something. It's like really important. And family, I think, has been important to me and is important for a lot of Indian people in particular, because it's who you came from, where you came from. It's people that are going to be with you forever. And I think growing up in an Indian family, you have no choice really. Like whether you like it or not, you're stuck with these folks and like they're going to be a part of your life. They're going to force their way into your life, whether you like it or not. I think it's important for me, I can look back into like who I am as a person and I can see elements of my grandfather, my father, my mother, like all these things. So I just think it's really interesting and fortunate to spend a lot of time with my parents.
What has family taught you about yourself?
So I think I come from a Marwari background, so for those who are listening and don't know, my people hail from Rajasthan, which is a desert region in India. And I've realized that I have like all the characteristics of a classic Marwari and that is something that obviously, comes from my family. I think it's like a business-minded outlook on everything. I think it is a like scarcity mentality. I think it's like if you grow up in a desert, you kind of have to have a scarcity mentality. And so I think I am a product of that. And if I think about my grandfather who passed away a few years ago, he kind of came from nothing and built himself into a bunch of different businesses over time. And I think a big part of who I am comes from these people. And it's always interesting to learn about it.
So you talked about being from a Marwari family. So Fintech is no coincidence in some sense.
It's true. It's funny. So my first foray into Fintech was actually on the nonprofit side.
Right.
So with Kiva. Kiva is a microfinance institution that allows people from primarily from the United States to lend money to people in the developing world, including India. And it's funny because Marwaris are historically money lenders. You go around. So they ended up all over India, and you have whatever little bit of money you start with, people give you one of their shoes, you hold their money for a day, and they give you a little bit more the next day, that sort of thing. That's the business that we were originally in, my people.
It's funny how it came back like in certain way, full circle.
It's true.
And you deferred your MBA to go to India to do this nonprofit.
Yeah.
Was that a conscious choice in terms of you trying to somewhat back then try to relate to your roots, or was that something else?
Yeah. So I grew up here in the States. I was born in Pittsburgh. I have always had a strong tie to India though, because only my immediate family, only my parents and brother are in America. Everyone else is in India. And so I was going back every year or two, and there were times when I would spend the whole summer in India. So I spent a lot of time there.
Yeah.
Always felt a closeness to it, but had never lived there for a longer period of time, and felt like I really wanted to. I felt like I wanted to get closer to my roots, and then had this vision of like giving back to India, so to speak. I think, in hindsight, I don't think I did much for India. I think India did a lot for me though in that year. Yeah,
let's talk about that. Like, what did you learn during your time in India?
Yeah, I think it really fundamentally changed me as a person.
What time was this again?
This is 2006-07. So I was 24, 25 years old. I had graduated college when I was 20, so I'd been working for 4 years prior to going to India. And then when I was in India, I was living on 2,000 rupees a month. So like literally a couple of bucks a day, a couple of US dollars a day. And it was a wild time, man. I think I learned a lot about myself, what I need. And I realized I became way less materialistic. So like even today, I don't really have a desire for any material objects other than every technology gadget.
Of course.
But beyond that, I don't really need much.
Yeah.
And I just I think I realized, living with 2,000 rupees a month, you kind of have to figure out creative ways to do things.
Yeah.
And so it was awesome. It was a really great experience for me. It's probably easy to say that looking back. At the time, it wasn't always easy. I had some miserable experiences. I had typhoid. I had like, you name it.
You name it. You name it. Experience of most Americans going back to India.
Yeah.
All of that.
All of that stuff. But looking back, it was one of the best times of my life. And actually just today, I happened to be looking back at some stuff I used to write quite often back then. And I don't know if you heard, but Ratan Tata passed away today.
Yeah.
And so I had, he's always been an idol to me. And I met him in 2008. And when I was in India, I wrote quite a bit about Tata, and actually had read about Jamshedji and JRD. And so anyway, I was looking back into my writing today.
Do you find it funny in some sense that I heard this on one of the podcasts again, you mentioned that your father, when he was trying to come to the US, was earning somewhere close to like $20 a month.
Yeah.
And that happened to be your first salary in some
true.
sense when you went back to India as well. Did you ever think about that?
I never thought about it till just now. Yeah.
It's funny how life kind of like plays itself in mysterious ways where you have so many similarities to how your parents' stories kind of like play out in some sense.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's wild to think about. At that time when he came in the early 70s, like the differences between India and America were so stark.
Yeah.
And, the fact that he was earning $20 a month back then working at Bombay Rayon is wild.
It's wild. And what have you learned about India growing up from your parents that was very different from your experience when you were there?
It's interesting. I think, so my parents both came over in the 70s, and the India that I had heard about and like the way that we lived our life was stuck in the 70s. I think the same is true for many people of my generation.
It is so true.
In the United States.
Yes.
Right? So like my parents came over with this idea of India, and the reality had changed in the interim 20, 30 years very quickly, like especially in the 90s and really since the 2000s, it's been dramatic change. But my parents' vision or version of India is still that one, stuck in time.
Yeah.
And then especially like a Marwari family is very traditional. And so my ideal of like what is India was based on that. And then living in India 2006, 7, I was like, oh shit, like it's a totally different place.
It is. I don't think it's just true of your parents. It happens quite a lot with my generation, a lot of my friends as well.
Yeah.
People who came in 2010, 2012, 2013, all of them look back at India with fond nostalgia, but also think India is stuck in those times.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of excitement that people feel when they go back home and they see UPI for the first time. They're like, oh, I still remember in 2019 when people went back home and I went back and I used UPI for the first time. I'm like, wow, this is game changing. India has like progressed so much, but India has always been changing every year as opposed to any other country, or the pace at which it's grown in the last 15 years has probably been phenomenal.
Yeah, I mean, yes, India's been changing a lot, certainly since in our lifetimes.
Yeah.
Prior to that, there was a long period where it didn't change as much.
It did.
I just came from India yesterday. I was there on Monday. And I have to say, like, every time I'm there, I love being there. It feels like home. Landing the plane, I'm like excited. And then there are always things that annoy me about India. Like the service, traffic, like all these things that I think when I lived there, or when I think like basically being a poor person in India, I was willing to put up with this stuff. And then now having a different lifestyle, still facing these challenges is annoying to me.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
Going back to the story or going back to your parents and how family has played an important role in impacting who you are today, I want to understand what role family has played in you being an operator, you being an investor. Or is there even a correlation that goes where you can relate saying, today I'm an investor and these are some of my values and principles and the way I invest and the kind of people that I'm looking to invest in, which ties back to how you've been brought up?
Yeah, I think so. I think coming from particularly not my parents, but like my grandfather on my mom's side and his entire family. So like all of my family in India are entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Like not a single one of them has a job working for somebody else. So I think that was like in my blood. Like when I was a small child, like when they asked, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And everyone wants to be a firefighter or president or something. Okay. I was like, businessman. And I didn't even know, like, what does that even mean? I don't know, but I want to be one. And, you know, my grandfather, like, went through so many different iterations in life. Like, he actually started out working, he worked at a steel company, became CFO of that steel company. Then like, when I was born, sort of retired a little bit and then went into a bunch of different businesses throughout life. He started a TV company. Like, so when TV was becoming big in the 80s, he manufactured TVs. Then there was like the payphone era, STD, PCO, like those call boxes. He made those and distributed those throughout Maharashtra and UP. And then like, he would always be sending me ideas like, let's start this business together. And actually I was just looking, my wife was, my wife was talking to me about an idea, which was like genealogy in India. And she said, oh, it'd be cool if there was some way for us to like look up our family history and all this stuff. And then I said, you know, I think my grandfather had this idea. So I actually looked up, and in like 2012, he had sent me an email with this like huge business plan for like this exact company. Yeah. Like, and he sent it to me and my cousin, who's a developer in India. And he was like, you guys should start this business together. Like, we'll work on it together. And it was basically like the ancestry.com for India. And so, you know, to be at his age, thinking about these, like starting a .com company with his grandchildren was pretty cool.
It's very interesting to see how, you know, even little things like that, you know, when you associate with the family and you see the opportunities that they have uncovered over the course of their lifetime. Yeah. And with tech now, you know, almost being ubiquitous everywhere, not just in India, but in every generation, everybody is so ingrained with tech that everybody is constantly thinking about how can we make something interesting at the back of technology.
Totally.
And what I want to link that back to is who you are today as an investor. You get an opportunity to sit down and look at plenty of ideas, sure, in fintech, but then through your friends, you obviously have an opportunity to like learn about where the next big thing is, or what the next big thing is and where it's taking place. Do you have a chance to like sometimes sit back and think on what if today we were going to be investing in companies that perhaps could change the way that not just how we operate, but how a large section of the population that has very little access to technology or thinks about technology in a sense that not you and I think about. Do you know what I mean? It's how our grandparents think about technology is very different from how you and I think about technology. But that is not where the huge opportunity lies in terms of venture returns and venture investments. How do you think about causes and companies that are trying to go after, these niche sectors where they may not be that $1 billion returns, but may have that opportunity to like still change significant amount of lives?
It's tricky. So first of all, I'll say like our fund is called Better Tomorrow Ventures because we want to create a better tomorrow, right? And that being said, like for a fund of our size, so we're a $150 million fund, investing at seed. And the reality is, if I think that there's a company I'm investing in that won't be $1 billion outcome, it's just hard to get excited about it because the math of venture is such that, let's say at exit, I own 10% of a company or less, maybe 7% of a company, and it exits for $500 million. Amazing, right? $500 million is an amazing outcome for an entrepreneur. But for me, if let's say I own 10%, that's 50 million. And on my $150 million fund, I have to return 500 million.
That's right.
So that actually only got me 10% of the way to what I need to achieve.
Yeah.
And that's great, but really what I'm looking for is something that's going to return the entire fund. And so it kind of has to be $1 billion plus outcome. Now, that being said, I think there are a lot of amazing business opportunities that serve folks that are currently underserved.
Yeah.
And many of the best opportunities are serving these kind of folks. So if you look at one of the best consumer fintech businesses in America, it's Chime. And Chime, really their customer base is underserved folks that are not well served by traditional finance in America. And they serve these folks better, and that's built an amazing opportunity for them. And I think the same opportunity is available in a bunch of different countries around the world.
The thing that you talked about, your grandfather having this massive idea that you probably wanted to like work on, which is ancestry for India. Well, if you think about it from a venture scale business, it doesn't do well in India at all.
Yeah.
Like you can even like argue that ancestry is not doing that great here in the US.
Totally.
So forget about it working in India where ticket sizes being so small, people not going to use it on. But there are plenty of opportunities very similar to an ancestry or that's been built out here, which has an opportunity in countries like India, Latin America, and other places where you do not have that $1 billion outcome. But there are reasons where you as an investor sometimes could get tempted, distracted, and feel that, what if, I put in a small check and see how this plays out?
Yeah.
Does that ever happen to you where you feel, forget about the outcome, I'm going to try and see if this is something that is going to surprise me?
I think, oftentimes these kind of things don't make sense for our fund, but can be something that I personally am interested in. And so I have made investments personally in things like that I think are probably not venture scale outcomes, but could be, they're just things that I want to see in the world.
The reason I asked you that question before this one is because let's say there is an interesting opportunity that's come out because of these underserved markets. Don't you want to be the first person to put your finger on that and say, I got this right when nobody else did? I'll give you a good example of that. 5 or 10 years ago, for the very first time, somebody had approached me and said, I want to build a fate tech company in India. Back then it wasn't called fate tech, but somebody wanted to take astrology and, temple darshans and bring it online. And I said, this is not going to scale. You must be crazy.
Yeah.
But today when you take a look at fate tech, not just in India, but then in the US, there's a huge market. Across the world, there's huge markets and businesses that have been built. And those early investors who perhaps said, you know what, I'm going to take a bet here, may have seen some results because of up rounds, they got secondary exits, so on and so forth. Do you ever feel as an investor there might be an opportunity where you feel this is too close to heart, but what if this ends up becoming an industry because we've taken a bet in this sector?
Yeah, I think we have had that sort of thing happen, but it's not like, I think those kind of things come, I'd say there are more companies we pass on because we think the opportunity isn't there. And then there haven't been many times where we passed because we didn't think there was a big opportunity and then one developed.
Yeah.
So I haven't seen it yet.
Got it. One of the questions that I had in preparation for this was to ask you about how you think about yourself just on the way up here, we got stopped by a person who recognized you, met you in Austin, and he's like, Sheel, you're here. I want to like have a minute of you. And I'm sure you get that often. Like, you get recognized on the streets of San Francisco or any place that you go to. You've obviously been seen in your avatar as a founder with 2 exits, a VC with a $350 million fund, if not more. And you've probably get recognized in most rooms that you enter. But that's how people know you. They know you as an operator. They know you as an investor. They know you as somebody who's, who has a pulse on the market and is able to like change tomorrow. If I'm not over-exaggerating there. But that is who you've built your brand to be. And that's how the world perceives you. How would you like the world to perceive you as opposed to how the world perceives you? Who's Sheel? If you were to like define who Sheel is, who's Sheel?
Yeah. So first, I think like pretty much what you see is what you get. Like whatever there is, I think everybody who knows me from the internet or whatever, when they meet me, they're like, "Oh, you're exactly what I expected." Yeah. There's no difference. There's no filter on the internet. I kind of am what I put out there, and it's like, I'm interested in a lot of different things. I am a friendly guy. Like, I love talking to people, and I'm happy to like, if you see me on the street, say hi. Like, I'll chat with you. It's fun. Like, I'm happy to meet with people. And I try to be, when I meet with founders, I try to be helpful as much as possible, even if we don't invest. Sometimes I definitely miss the mark, but that's my aspiration. And so I think, I am a curious person, an investor, and like kind of an explorer as well.
What's kind of made you this way? Like, why are you so friendly? It's a very stupid question to ask because more often than not, you'll bump into people in San Francisco who have perhaps not even done 10% of what you've achieved, but still have that arrogance and they're very unapproachable. Even the people who have achieved great things, some of them are just unapproachable and some people are just very approachable.
Yeah.
Is that, again, does that tie back to like the environment that you grew up in? Is that because you felt the opportunities that you've had, gone back and worked in India, the opportunities that somebody gave your father, the stories that you heard from your families, has that played a role in some way in making who you are, the person that you are?
Yeah, it's funny. I've never thought about it. But I'm sure, obviously all those things have had impact.
Yeah.
I think like one thing that I remember is like, I try not to find anything like beneath me because I think like living in India as a poor person, I did a lot of crazy things. So like I wanted to explore what it was like to be a rag picker. So these are the people who like recycle materials. So I spent some time just collecting plastics, and it was a crazy thing. And people saw me and they were like, "You don't belong in this." Like, just by the way I look. Yeah. Even, they were like, "You don't belong here." And like, "This is beneath you," sort of thing. And I remember just feeling like I want to explore what it's like to be every different type of person. And I don't feel like anything's like truly beneath me. And throughout my life, people have offered me opportunities and been so approachable and friendly that I kind of like want to do the same for other people. And so, I think it's just who I am. I think my mom is a really friendly person. She'll make friends with anybody. Actually, one time, I was busy working. She was here in San Francisco visiting me, and she had like some issue with her iPhone. So she went to the Apple store. I come home and like, I like wander past my kitchen and like, somebody's like, rearranging my shelves, and I assume it was my mom. So I'm like, "Hey, Mom." And then it's not my mom. Yeah. It's some other Indian auntie. Yeah. Okay. And what had happened was my mom at the Apple store made a friend with some other Indian auntie and became friendly enough that Indian auntie came home and was arranging my kitchen. Wow. And then subsequently, like they just met at the Apple store, and then subsequently they've been friends. And then like that auntie, like she lives in LA, but when my mom comes to town to San Francisco, she'll like fly up to visit her. Wow. Like she just like makes friends easily. It's cool.
It's so amazing because this is something that I've observed about a lot of people. I don't know if they think about it themselves in their free time. When you share stories like this about either your mother or yourself, and you're just saying that I've been so fortunate that people around me have just given me opportunities and have taken a bet on me. You're also, in some sense, instilling that nature in someone else. And it's happened to me over the course of like my career. When I came to this country, I didn't know anybody. I never came here with like 10 rupees in my pocket. But I didn't know anybody. It wasn't as dramatic though. But along the way, there have been so many people that I can thank for just saying, you know what, let me take a bet on you. I don't know why they did. I have no reason to even question why they did that. Even today, like when I go back and I ask them, they're like, I don't know. I just thought it was a good, you're lucky, it was a good day. I was in a good mood.
Totally.
Some of them would just say
the
that.
reality. That's the reality of life. Yeah.
And a lot of people have just done that over the course of my life. You, in fact, about a year ago when I reached out to you cold, you said, drop me an email. And about a year later, here we are. And that's my fault because I kind of like went to India for about 6 months and so, and here we are recording this episode today. You still said yes to that. I still don't know why you said yes to that. There's so many people like that we come across who are quite generous with their time. And that's the most important thing. It's the kind of people that you end up meeting who have this profound impact, who then essentially will change the course of your life and your career in some sense. It doesn't have to be career always, but it's always people who will have a profound impact on you, in your life. It's happened to me 3 times, and there are 3 people who I always give a shout out to. And these were people who I had no right to bump into. All happened very serendipitously. And they happened in moments in my life where I felt I have no idea what to do. I'm broken and there is no path, no direction, and I'm lost. And it's at that point of time that these people have magically appeared and for some reason shown me the path and said, this is what you should be doing. Or come and work with me. Come and do this with me. And I will be able to, and when I look back at my life, those have been the moments that have really changed the course of me as a person, my path. There's no reason I should be in America. There's no reason I should be in San Francisco. There's no reason I should be sitting in this room with you. But somehow, some way that has happened. And today here we are having this conversation about all these people who impacted my life. And I'm sure when you look back at yours, there may be some of these inflection points or some people who have magically appeared when you had no reason to know why, or you probably were lost in life, not knowing where you're, what next is going to look like. Do you ever sit back or do you remember those moments where you felt, I have no reason to win, but today there's somebody cheering me on from the sidelines?
Yeah, actually, I was just thinking about it. So I biked over here, and on the bike ride, I was thinking about this Ratan Tata passing away today, and I met him briefly in India in 2008. The reason I was in India is my mentor at that time. I was there with my mentor at that time. His name was C.K. Prahlad. So he wrote a book called The Fortune at the Base of the Pyramid, Fortune at the Bottom of the Pyramid. And in the 80s had written a book called The Core Competence of the Firm. And he was a professor at Michigan. And I went there because I got to work with him. And he was super influential to my life. And in business school, he kind of like took me by the arm and was like, you know, you'll be working with me. We wrote some cases together. And then I went to India with him and he won the Padma Vibhushan, this like huge civilian honor in India. And Ratan Tata also did. And he was just like, you're going to be under my wing.
Yeah.
And even though he was like with all these industrialists at the time, he was like, you're my student. I brought you here.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I walked up to a table. He was texting me. Walked up to a table with like him and like Ratan Tata, Birla, like all these people. And he was like, come, let's go have a drink. And so he left all these people to hang out with me. Yeah. And then he told me, he gave me this advice before he passed away. He said, I want you to do 3 things. He said, I want you to work on hard problems. I want you to work in emerging markets, and I want you to write about it. And I don't know if I've like lived up to his expectations, but it was great advice. And I think he really took me under his wing. And you know, he passed away back in 2010, but has been super influential in my life.
Do you look back and ask just the universe as to why you were the chosen one?
No, I don't know. I think there's some set of putting yourself out there and opportunities present themselves. Yeah. And I definitely have put myself out there. And then there's some aspects of luck that you just happen to be in the right place.
I'll tell you why I asked you that question. I have days like yesterday where when I was sitting and preparing, I'm like, why is he taking this meeting with me? Why is he doing this podcast with me? And I often have this with so many people that I meet in life. What have I done to like actually get this? And that's the imposter syndrome in me.
Yeah.
Like ever since I moved to this country, I've always felt every room that I walked into,
Totally.
everyone's achieved so much in life. There's so much that I have to do even to just deserve to be in that room. And while I'm in this room, I feel like I kind of like conned my way in here.
Yeah.
It's a true thing.
I know,
like as a
I know what you mean.
founder, as an investor, that's a thing that happens often as well. I'm sure your founders are probably asking themselves this question quite often, but they don't really talk about it in public because we don't normalize this kind of stuff. We don't normalize like the internalities that we have, when we think about things. And are you a human? Like,
yeah, dude. Okay. So I remember the first time I read about imposter syndrome and I was like, oh my God, other people have this too.
Yeah.
And so it was about 15 years ago. There was some article I read about like, what is imposter syndrome? And I remember sending it to people that I'd talked to about like my own feelings and being like, oh my God, this is exactly what I face. For whatever reason, it's gone away from me. Like I had it really bad for a long time. And then now I think I've just accepted whatever it is. And
you've gone to a place of discomfort.
Yeah, like I'm comfortable being the imposter still.
Yeah.
But it's not like crippling to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely was for a long time.
It ends up happening quite often, especially when in certain situations that kind of like overwhelm you. You kind of feel like good things are happening.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I don't think I deserve
Totally.
what's happening to me right
Totally.
now. And sometimes you end up jeopardizing that good thing that's happening because of that.
You're like, I don't deserve to be here.
You don't deserve it. And the reason I also keep bringing this up often with people who've achieved a lot in their lives is to understand what kind of insecurities that they have, what kind of framework do they have around themselves that's kind of given them some solace in one, feeling that emotion, and two, making sure that they don't get consumed by it. Like, do you have a framework when you have these negative thoughts that come into your head, and how do you manage with it?
No, I think I'm actually like very lucky in some ways that I don't ever dwell on anything for too long. Like my brain is such that actually I have a really hard time remembering negative stuff.
That's great.
It's actually like mostly great and sometimes bad.
Yeah.
But like if I look back on the past, I always look back on it like, oh, it was so great. Like whatever happened, like me living in India was so great, even though like, yeah, like I had major health issues and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, looking back on it, it's all positive. Past relationships, all positive, like all this sort of stuff. So I've been fortunate in that however my brain chemistry works, I don't get to dwell on things too long. So I don't have any particular framework for you, but I've just been lucky in that way.
That's fantastic. The reason that I asked you that question again is because I've lately been speaking to a lot of founders and getting them to open up about the challenge of building companies. You've been there twice.
Yeah.
You're also building an organization.
Yeah, totally.
A legacy with your fund. Because I think this is going to outlive, you,
hopefully,
me, for a long time. That's the vision for most people.
Of course, yeah.
Funds, right? And in that journey, you obviously end up investing in people who are at the end of the day, people.
Yeah.
And the challenges that they face when they're building companies are real. We don't talk about them enough. We only talk about the success stories. We talk about all the wins that they have. We don't celebrate the losses. We don't celebrate the downs that most founders go through. Have you had a chance to sit down with your founders, or have your founders reached out to you and said, hey, this is a very difficult period in my building journey. And I'm just not talking about, hey, revenue's not coming into the door. None of that stuff. It's actually saying, hey, I have anxiety, I have depression, I've lost a loved one. How do you manage when a portfolio founder reaches out to you and says they're going through something that's so personal, and then separate your investor persona and become that friend?
I think I feel pretty honored that a bunch of folks in our portfolio have felt comfortable enough with me, their investor, to talk about this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
People have talked to me about like their relationships, like what's going on in their personal life. People have said like, I've had multiple founders have like called me up and been like crying about like, I don't know what to do. Like, here's what's happening in my company. like it's not working, but I have all these people that I employ. I have like my whole life is tied up around this business. Like my kids chant the name of my company. Like they have stickers of my company on their bicycle. They talk about it with their friends, like, and it's not working. What do I do here? And part of the work of being an investor is kind of being that therapist to the founder. I can't say that I'm great at it, but I can say like, I can talk to them about my own experience and, just be a listening ear. And I think you do have to truly care about that person to be that listening ear, for them to want you to be that listening ear. And I don't think it's like drives returns to the fund or anything like that, but it's just being human. And I like love these relationships, and like, we have companies that didn't work out and we're still very close to the founders and still invite them as if they are part of the portfolio. Yeah. So I think all that stuff is just like part of being a human. I think being an investor, you're sometimes in a position of being a mentor to founders, and that sometimes extends beyond just like building the business.
Yeah. And does that come naturally to you or to most investors, where they have to separate themselves from the investor and be that mentor or that friend to a startup because you have fiduciary responsibilities? You kind of feel, oh man, what are you guys doing? In back of your head, you're probably frustrated sometimes when you don't see expected results. If it happens over a period of time, especially in years where there's a slump.
Yeah.
You have 4 portfolio companies going through the same thing, and you kind of, because a part of you then questions yourself.
Totally.
And your investment decisions.
Totally. Yeah.
And then you have that other side of you that needs to be that person who is going to be a friend to your portfolio founders.
I think in 2021, every company raised a follow-on round. People were raising insane, within months of our investment, they were raising at like 10x the valuation or even more in some cases. And we felt like geniuses. And then kind of 2022, 2023, like you said, the slump happens and you're like, shit, am I any good at this? Or was I just like riding the wave and now, these companies aren't working out.
Yeah.
That's a reflection on me.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel that way. And in terms of advice, I think I'm probably a pretty bad therapist, but I do care about these people, and I like being the first call. It's like probably an ego thing. And so I want to be as helpful as possible. And in terms of like giving advice that might be at odds with the business, I think at the end of the day, like a company's going to work or it isn't going to work. And there are certain questions that impact the business. Like if the question is like, should we sell the company today at this price or should we keep going? Of course, that's impacting my business. But I think the nice thing about not being an overly concentrated portfolio is I am able to offer advice to the founder that I think is just like what they should do for themselves. And there have been times when we had an outcome that was a couple $100 million, $250 million, we had an outcome. And that was great for the founder, amazing. But for our fund, it was like, good, like not gonna make the fund. I was able to just like look at that, be in the founder's shoes and say, hey, like, I think this is actually a great opportunity for you. And like evaluate it from their own perspective. And I think people appreciate that. And I think at the end of the day, that pays dividends to us. And I think like anytime anybody asks that founder about working with us, like they're going to say like they were always on my side.
Right. Does that help the fact that you were a builder before you became an investor?
I think it definitely gives you that perspective from being a builder. I do think there are so many great VCs who aren't builders, who haven't been a builder of a fund or of a company, maybe a builder of a fund only. I think whether or not being a builder means I can give better advice, I'm not sure.
Right.
But I do think having that background means that founders listen to you more. And I've heard that from them. And actually like right now we're raising a fund And so LPs are doing diligence on us, and they tell us that, like, the founders always say they love the fact that you're builders and like they value your advice.
Right.
And so, like, I don't know if my advice is good, but I know that people are more likely to take it.
So if today you and I were constructing an ideal VC,
Yeah.
we had this opportunity. Somebody came to us and said, we'll give you this technology. You're creating this person. This investor is going to be whoever you want this to be. And what kind of pie chart are we going to look at when we construct this person? Like, what are key traits? And I'm not talking about, just be a good listener and stuff. But if you're trying to like see from a human angle and a philosophy angle, what would make a good investor if you were to like build that person from scratch?
Yeah. So, what's interesting is there's so many different personas that are good investors. There's folks who are loud and public like me. And then there are folks that are total introverts and you never hear from them, but they're just amazing investors.
Yeah.
There are folks who come from a founder background. There are folks who come from a journalist background. There are folks who are very kind. There are folks who are assholes.
Yeah.
that can be good investors, right? So I don't know that there's one particular persona. I think you need to be pretty smart. You don't need to be like insanely smart. You need to be like pretty smart and able to grok new topics easily. You need to be able to relate to a founder. But that being said, like, I know some great investors who are basically autistic. Right. And so I think like my particular style is one where I'm close to the founders and spend time with them. Like, a founder has been staying at my place for the last week, like that sort of thing. Many investors are different. For me, that pie chart is some element of like founder empathy, intelligence, and sort of like analytical skills. So like wanting to dive in and understand a topic and really understand, how is this business going to make money? Is this business going to make money? Those sorts of things. I think those are a few things that are important. There's so many though.
I agree, because the little time that I spent, like 4.5 years or so that I spent, most of my time was spent reflecting on who I was as an investor. And from the time that I started writing my first check to the last check that I wrote, the one thing that I learned about myself is I don't know much.
Yeah, totally.
I don't know who I am as a person, because with different founders, I'm a different person. And I think I was a chameleon.
Yeah.
What the founder needed from me, I was trying to be that person for that occasion. Like if a founder came to me and said, I'm trying to hire somebody and I'm trying to look for this one rock star person, I don't know how to go about it. Can you find me a guy who can find this person for me? So I would go and try and see if I can find a good talent person or a recruiter who can help this person find that. If somebody came to me and said, I'm having a shitty situation in life, can you be a friend? Or I just want to like vent. Will you not judge me? Will you not go back and report this to a fund?
Yeah.
And I would have founders come and tell me that.
Totally.
Just don't go and tell the partner this, but I want to like share something with somebody. It could be a friend whose company I've invested in. And I'd be like, yeah, I'm happy to do that for you. But at the end of the day, when I sat back and I said, who am I truly as an investor? I didn't have an answer, because I felt I was always being a little somebody to somebody. Mm-hmm. I wasn't truly being like Akash. Like if you saw me at work and you saw me outside of work, you'd be like, dude, who are you? Like you have two different personalities. Like you said, what meets the eye is what you get.
Always, yeah.
I'm very different that way. In personal life, I'm very different. In a professional context, I'm very different. My friends, when they see me at work, they're like, dude, like who is this person? Like, can you like leave that person at work and like just come here? Because they've seen me. Have you seen that movie, Zindagi Na Milegi Dobara?
Yeah, I love that movie. Yeah,
Hrithik is on that on the laptop and he's having that call with his Japanese client.
Yeah.
And then he goes back and he becomes himself. That's probably the best description of who I am at work and when I'm with my friends. So when I was going through that motion of 4.5 years, one of the reasons I left VC was because I couldn't discover who I was. I couldn't really like know, is this really the profession that's going to make me happy at the end of the day? Yeah. Am I truly finding myself in this profession? And I think, I don't know about you, but for me, every job that I've taken or any profession that I look out for, I always try and look at it from a point of view of, can I find myself here? Can I truly, because I still don't know who I am.
Yeah.
Like I'm 33 years of age. You can ask me what have you done in life? And I can tell you all the things that I've achieved. But if you truly ask me, who are you? Today I'm at that point in my life where I can't give you an answer because I'm still trying to figure out who's that person that Akash is going to become, or what is that bigger purpose that I'm working towards. And I think that's a never-ending question and quest for a lot of people where they're trying to be in that process of self-discovery. Does your work become a process of self-discovery at some point for you? Maybe you've already achieved it in some sense, but when it was happening to you along your career, did you ever feel the thing you were picking up or the job that you're walking into or the reason you were starting a fund would somehow essentially help you get one step closer to knowing who Sheel is at that point of time or in 5 years from now?
Yeah. It does feel like I found it. And like, this is totally, yeah, it's like a lucky thing, right?
Yeah.
Not everybody gets to do what they think they were meant to do. I think this particular career is really good for me. Like the things that I like learning about new ideas. I like helping people.
Yeah.
Like this is a perfect combo of those things. So I'm fortunate to have found it. I didn't know that it was going to be a perfect fit, but I had an idea when I was on the other side of the table. Like when I was a founder, pitching VCs, I was thinking in the back of my mind, like, I want to be on the other side of the table. I didn't know what it meant, and I totally didn't realize what it was going to be like, but it's been better than I could have imagined. And I'm so happy to have found this career that is like a really good fit for who I am as a person.
Yeah. And do you have advice for people who, I mean, I'm selfishly asking you this as well.
Yeah.
In terms of finding who you are, how important is it for you to like do a little bit of self-reflection? And let's say you're 3 years into a job, into a career that you think might be a good fit for you, but it's not working out, but you're trying to like fool yourself that this is something that you need to do. Wait for another year, wait for another few months, wait for, I don't know, like the next inflection point, and maybe it's the thing for you. I know a lot of my friends as well who are in this journey. They're investors, they're founders, they're people who are journalists in different walks of life who are telling themselves, give it another 6 months. You never know what's going to happen in 6 months.
Yeah.
But I read this beautiful quote the other day which said, you never know until you stop. Because always people say you never know until you start. This is a quote says you never know what the journey on the other side is going to look if you don't stop what you're doing.
Interesting. It's a tricky thing because sometimes if you stop, it's hard to go back. But I think if you're in a position where you're saying, like, give it another 6 months, it's probably not the right thing. And it's probably a situation where you already know deep down.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to, there are other reasons. There might be like some ego reason that you keep at it or something else. And, I think you have to be true to who you are. So generally speaking, if you have those thoughts, it might not be the right thing.
But would that still be the same advice you would give founders who want to say they have got money in the bank, but they've just run out of fuel? Would still be the advice that you give them saying, hey, 6 more months, you never know what's going to change. Or if you truly have that feeling as a founder where you say, you know what, I don't think this is working out and I don't know if anything else I do is going to work out, I'm going to return capital to the investors.
Totally fine. And like we've encouraged, I think it's a tricky situation. Like there have been times when a founder, wanted to raise the next round. Other investors were willing to invest, but we weren't. Like we just didn't see the business going anywhere.
Yeah.
And we had like a real honest conversation with the founder. And I said, like, I don't think this is the best thing for you to be doing. Like you're a very talented individual.
Yeah.
Why are you spending time on this company? It's not going to have a meaningful outcome. And obviously it's a hard conversation to tell somebody, I'm not investing in your company. And other investors are saying, like other investors are putting money in. Very difficult conversation to have. But ultimately, like in the case I'm thinking of that first came to mind, like the founder said, like, I respect you and your opinion. And if you're right, it's probably not going to work. And so, ended up finding a home for the company and like deciding that it wasn't what he was going to spend his time on.
Yeah.
And so I think you have to just be real with people.
Does your respect for that person go up a notch when they're true to themselves and say,
Totally.
it's not going to work out, as opposed to their lie. Because you know when somebody's lying to themselves.
Totally. People are lying to themselves. And like, you know, at a time, like some types of founders are able to raise money, but like, is it worth spending years of your life on something that isn't working?
Yeah.
Like it's best to just figure out if it's working and if it's going to be you, if it's what you want to be doing.
And if it's not you, it can be somebody else.
Yeah,
who
totally.
Can get from, they always say that the people who get the companies from 0 to 1 may not always be the people who get from 1 to 10.
Totally.
And beyond.
Totally.
And is that like a philosophy that you have kind of like incorporated at the fund, where you feel, you know, we're more than just investors, we're more than just people who bring money to the table, we're people. We're trying to understand the psychology of just humans in a very high performing environment, which is startups. Or at least in San Francisco, you kind of like, I think it's pretty general worldwide. I think if you're running a company in any space, it is a pretty competitive space to begin with.
Yeah. No, we haven't had many companies that like changed leadership along the way. For the most part, you know, the CEO that we backed is the CEO that's running the company, but I think it's certainly possible.
Yeah.
And it's a high performance job, and it's not everybody's cut out for it. And to your point, some people are great getting from 0 to 1, but then beyond that struggle.
So coming towards maybe the last, you know, segment of the conversation here, you've obviously spent a good amount of time building to companies, selling to companies. Today you have the opportunity of working with a number of founders. What have you discovered about yourself in all of these journeys? The first company that you were at and the second one, because the first time when you were starting something, you probably didn't know anything.
Yeah, really didn't know anything.
Yeah, and the second time you were a little bit more wiser.
Yeah, second time wiser, but it was a different space. So again, kind of didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And it was also a different time back then. I think today people know so much about entrepreneurship and building a startup before they start a company. Like they read Hacker News or Paul Graham's essays or like there's just so much content out there where you know about stuff. I had none of this. Like I was a management consultant. I worked at BCG. A friend of mine was starting a company. I joined him. It wasn't even my idea or anything like that. And we were just figuring it out as we went. What is venture capital? How do you raise money? What does a Series A mean? Like we didn't know any of these things going in, and it was learning trial by fire, and it happened to work out. And you know, we were able to figure things out over time.
But what did that teach you about yourself?
I think one, that was a time where I learned, okay, I want to be a venture capitalist when I grow up.
Yeah.
And so what I did was after that first exit, I started angel investing, and I did it for a few reasons. One, when we sold, I moved to San Francisco. I was in Chicago before, and I moved to San Francisco and I started angel investing. And the reason I did it, I think there's a few reasons. One, like I didn't know that many people, so I was like, okay, I can make friends this way.
Yeah,
you know,
very expensive way to make friends.
Expensive way to make friends. I thought I can maybe I'll be inspired to join one of these companies if I'm so lucky,
right?
Or maybe I'll be inspired to start a company based on something I've seen. And then finally, I was like, maybe I'll be good at this, and then eventually it'll lead to a career in venture capital. Some of those early companies I saw and met and invested in became successful. And then I was like, okay, maybe I should do this more. And I found that I really enjoyed helping people at the earliest stages. Like I said, I had made so many mistakes. I didn't know what I was doing early days for sure. Being able to help people avoid those mistakes was great. You know, and then I decided, okay, this is what I want to be doing. And it's been awesome for me.
What about the second company? You know, you were a little bit more wiser. You sold.
Yeah. But it was just such a different type of company and such a different type of team.
Yeah.
That there were so many lessons learned from the first one, but second one was different, and we had our own challenges. We had like a co-founder conflict along the way, and now we're like super tight again, but there were times where we were like at odds with each other. And
that wouldn't have been easy.
No, it was never easy. Actually, both cases, both times we had co-founder. I had issues with the people I was working with, and in both cases now we're like super tight. They were at my wedding and everything, but along the way things got tense, and that happens. Actually, fortunately today in the VC fund, Jake and myself haven't had any issues yet.
It's good.
It's good. Knock on wood. Yeah. But lessons from the first into the second, yeah, for sure. I think like it's really about managing people. I was kind of in a business development role in both cases, and you just learn how to do it. And you learn, actually one of the, at our wedding, one of my co-founders spoke, and he gave like a speech about me, and it included this thing that I had forgotten, which is, I needed to close this sale. And I had looked up this person on the internet, found their face, went to a conference, followed them, like looked at everyone until I found this face, was like, this person hadn't been responding to me, saw that this person was smoking a cigarette. And so I bought a pack of cigarettes and started smoking a cigarette outside, even though I don't smoke and hate smoking. And I just wanted to get close to this person. So I was like doing whatever it took to get close to this person. And that included smoking a cigarette when I don't smoke.
Right.
And eventually we made the sale.
Yeah. It's funny that we end up doing things for the sake of the business, for the sake of like, our life. And in terms of pursuing certain people in our personal lives, we end up doing things that are so not true to who we are.
Yeah.
But it's really important to actually do that, in my opinion, because you end up discovering a very new side of you.
Totally.
You'll know that you're never going to go back and be that person. But in that moment, it kind of makes you feel like, you know what, this is what I think I need to do and you need to get rejected. You need to get probably a no. In that case, you got to win, which is great.
No, but you get so many no's along the way. Yeah.
But you perhaps also learned something about yourself, saying, this is probably the last time I'm going to do this. This is the last time I'm probably going to smoke a cigarette, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the last time I do this before I feel this is, and sometimes you got to do that as a founder. This is the last straw and you have to like do it because you have so many people that are relying on you.
Totally.
The next paycheck. And maybe this is the one that actually ends up saving everybody's jobs and could possibly put you on a path to having a great rocket ship.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
One thing that I often end up asking just builders and investors and just people as they reflect back on their own lives and the things that they've learned and everything that all the people that they've met over the course of their lives, what have you learned from the best people who have achieved the great successes in their lives, as well as the ones who have unfortunately not achieved so much? I don't want to call people failures. I don't think anybody's a failure. People have had different levels of success in their career. What have you learned from the ones that have achieved really big things?
Yeah, I think not that he's like achieved amazing things or anything, but like my grandfather, we talked going back to that.
Yeah,
I think the biggest lesson was like you can just do things. You can he would have an idea and just like work on it, and like he would read about something. He would read the newspaper every morning, and like this ancestry thing, he was like, yeah, let's just do it. Like me and my grandkids, we'll start this business together, and he did that throughout his life. Like he just would have some idea and just execute on it, and like kind of no matter what it took, he would just go there. Like he would learn about some idea, he would read about it in the newspaper, and then like sitting on his swing in the morning, he'd read about some idea, and then he'd be like, oh, let's go explore this. And he would just get in the car and we would drive somewhere, and like he would go into somebody's office and be like, can I speak to so-and-so? I have this, and like that sort of thing, just like this, like you could just do it.
Yeah.
If you put your mind to it, like there's nothing that you can't do. You just learn it and like talk to somebody. Eventually, like you'll get a lot of no's, but eventually you'll get a yes, and like that'll happen.
Yeah, it's all a numbers game, isn't it?
Yeah, and so that was a good learning from him. And then I think there's a lot of like, what can you learn from people's failures? I think it's like looking at like our companies that failed, the ones that we invested in that didn't succeed. I think a lot of times it's a speed of execution thing. Like you weren't iterating fast enough. You weren't working hard enough, fast enough. Speed is everything in startups. And so it's important for us as a fund also to be fast. And so I've learned to try to be fast and tenacious. I think those speed and tenacity are the two things that matter the most in a founder, I think.
I love that. And before we let you leave, one thing that I've observed with every public appearance that you've done, you have great fashion sense. I don't know if people have told you this.
No, nobody's ever told me that.
I mean, I love the shirts and the jackets, and it's so colorful. Yeah. It's who you are.
Yeah,
it goes back to what you were saying. It's what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
And I think it embodies who you are as a person. Again, I just wanted to like understand is that a conscious decision? How did that happen? How do you pick these? Like, do you have like a place that you go and this is like a favorite? I just love.
Okay, so dude,
Everything you
I
wear.
can't wait for this podcast to come out so I can replay this part for my wife, who thinks I have terrible fashion sense. She's like, you're going out of the house wearing that? What the hell, dude? So no, I don't think I have great fashion sense. I think I just wear whatever I feel like, and I like particular things. I don't think they're necessarily fashionable though.
Well, you were wearing this one particular orange jacket at the Insider, like reverse pitch.
Okay, yeah.
I loved it.
Cool. I don't even remember what it was. I'll have to look it up. I'll have to look it up. Okay,
It was really good. It was this orange jacket that you were wearing. I was like, oh wow, this is
Cool.
colorful. This is really nice.
Awesome.
Fits the event. Fits
yeah.
everything. So
Cool.
yeah. I just wanted to give you that compliment. Like
Awesome.
every time
Appreciate
I
it.
look at it, I'm like,
Actually, it's funny. So this sounds crazy, but I was looking at this hoodie and I was thinking like the hoodie that you're wearing is awesome. I want to find out where you got it.
this is you won't believe where I got this. This is a friend of mine who runs this company back in India, and he shut his business unfortunately. And when he was shutting it down, he said, "I have a last batch of things that I'm giving away to people that I really like, and I hope you can keep it as a memory of something that I'd built." And I said, "You know what? Send it over. I'm gonna wear it as much as possible wherever it is." And it's been 3 years since he shut his company down. I'm still wearing it.
Damn. Okay. So I can't even own it. It's no longer. Damn. Okay. Too bad.
Unfortunately. But that's the story of this. But thank you so much for being on the
you.
show.
This is
it was
super
a
fun.
pleasure hosting you.
Likewise.
And good luck to your venture fund. And I'm really looking forward to everything that you achieve over the course of the next 15, 20, 30 years and beyond as well.
Thank you. You're too kind, man.
No, I'm truly inspired by everything that you've done. And it's a true honor sitting across the table from you and having this
Really
conversation.
appreciate it.
Hey, if you've made it this far, first of all, thank you so much for your support. It truly means a lot to me and my team who spend countless number of hours recording, producing, and pushing this content out to you. We have recorded some great episodes with fantastic guests here in Silicon Valley, and I can't be more excited to bring this to each and every one of you. If you like this episode or any of the audio ones that we've brought to you in the past, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. My only request to you would be to like, share, and if possible, leave some feedback and comments in the section below so that we can improve and bring to you some of the best content from leaders here in Silicon Valley who are investing and building great companies. Thank you so much, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.